Hey everyone, welcome to Mindset Talks Life Beyond the Checkboxes. I'm John Jaramillo, Leadership Performance Coach.
And I'm Prati Kaufman. I'm a marketing coach and a consultant and an entrepreneur.
In this series, we want to get to real everyday conversations, conversations that go beyond the checkboxes and the formality of our respective coaching fields. When you're working with somebody in coaching, you start with a basic checklist of the things that you have to cover, the areas you have to cover. But as you go through those checklists, when you've gone through the standard ones, then you get customized into who people are. So there's more natural conversation about what they can bring of themselves. So here we want to break down issues from our respective fields, whether it's leadership or marketing and energy on Prati's side. So, this topic today, we're going to talk about advice that we want to give to returning students. It's the fall. Everybody's got their back to school pictures of their students up online, and everybody's sharing that excitement, I guess, for the parents, maybe not so much for the students of going back to school and starting a school year, new school year. So, Prati, when we get into this, it's the way that I view this advice to students is even though we work with professionals, you and I, you in the marketing and energy and entrepreneurial space, me in the leadership space, there's a way that we can get students to think a certain way. So it's not that they have to do this. It's not that they have to go and market themselves officially, or they have to step up and show their leadership in some kind of aggressive manner. But you can start planting the seeds of certain ways that they can think. It's an option. I don't want to take away anything from their experience in school, but I would love if they started viewing themselves a certain way, because that's what I find with students is because it's a curriculum, because there are tests, exams, and you're graded. They're following this system, this script, but they tend to forget that they can bring their own value to whatever they're doing. We don't really ask them to do that until they're outside of school, whether it's sports or whether it's in their job. But I think it benefits them to start thinking about what is it that makes you unique? What is it that makes you happy? And when you're in school, there's a lot of pressure to maybe conform to a certain way, whether it's in a class, whether it's in your groups of friends or groups of colleagues. But I think a lot of people, and even though I work a lot with professionals, I find myself volunteering with college students, graduate students, and lower, and presenting to younger and younger students. So even though the students are young, very young sometimes, the lessons are the same. It's just the wording. My biggest piece of advice to them is don't lose who you are. Don't compromise what makes you happy. And I know it's very hard in their environment, but for me, that's a big piece of advice is don't lose who you are, figure out, work towards who you are. Because I mean, you and I, we're both professionals. We're older than most students that are in obviously graduate school and lower. Even we are evolving. Even we are refining who we are. We have a good grasp on it, but we're works in progress. We're getting better. We're doing what we can to advance our businesses, work for our clients, the quality of our work. So based on that, and you've mentioned that the culture where you grew up is very different from here. So what would you say to what I just outlined? What do you think of that? And then how do you view it? And then also, I mean, if there's any, what would you say the differences are between the culture where you grew up to here? Is there anything that we could learn from that culture?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a different world. I think we don't typically have pressure to look a certain way, to act a certain way, or to have the things what others have. Like, and that was not. I think still to an extent that's not a thing in India. Correct. Well, I grew up, it's you are who you are, and that's that. Okay, it's not about having and acting a certain way, or I need to be like my friends, or so there's less of that pressure there. But one of the things what I've learned, and my son is only 12, and it's just funny that you would say that. Yesterday he was talking to me, and I really enjoyed that. He said, "Oh, Mama, I the first 2 days of school, and I already made some acquaintances." And I said, "Acquaintances or friends?" He's like, "No, no, no, acquaintances. Like they are not friends yet, and there are some I have as friends, but some I actually, typically it takes me time." And I said, "Okay, who are these guys?" He said, "You know what? We are these like weird," and it was a badge of honor for him. Like we are these weird, all the weird kids hanging out together. And it was a very fascinating conversation. For him, being weird wasn't something to look down, but something to be proud of. And I was so happy in that moment that he's taking his uniqueness and individuality as you know, because a lot of people say you're weird, like that's a very thing often he hears a lot. He's 12, he's like 5'10", he has 20 pounds on me, his hair is long and wild, he's into books, so he's always weird. So he said, okay, tell me about your kids. He said, there's one kid who is just short and lanky. I said, short and lanky or tall and lanky? He said, no, 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 mama, short and lanky, and he talks like this, but I really enjoy his company and we all hang out together. There's one kid who wears the same set of clothes. Basically, he has the same t-shirt, someone like same 27 or same, shorts. So he said,
He's the next
it's
Mark
been a year,
Zuckerberg.
yeah, it's been a year. People think he's wearing the same clothes, and that's it. So I feel like that's a good lesson for all of us to learn, to embrace really who you are and not to fall for you need to look this way or that way or be this way or that way to be accepted, because we are going to find our people no matter where we are.
Yeah, there's a herd mentality. There's groupthink. It's school, so you're being, for lack of a better word, controlled. Like, this is the way that you have to learn together. This is the way you have to this together. This is what you have to take on. This is where you have to be in terms of grade to move on. But it's amazing. I love the fact that he's that young and he's comfortable in his own skin as much as you can be for that age,
Yeah.
because I remember, when you're in school and there are just so many different groups and so many different cliques, and um, whoever would fall into that category of weird was more of an outcast. So it's good that your son is comfortable in his skin and he sees that value. And I wonder, not that mom is weird, but I wonder, in the way that you've raised him and the curiosity that you've demonstrated to him. I know you guys are always going off on different adventures and living life and exploring. I wonder how much of that comfort in his skin actually comes from what you've not even taught him, but the example that you've set for him.
Exactly. I think that's why, it's important, because you're going, we are talking to college students who are just passing, probably going to high school, you're returning to wherever you are. Uh, and you, in a way, are going to be the leaders, right? This is where you are going, whether you like it or not. You are leading now. You are at the edge of, precipice of defining what how this world will shape. Correct. I know these are big
Absolutely.
words, but really that's where you're going, and one day you will realize how true that is, even if you don't think it this way. So for you to know, in college, I feel like you are a brand. You are your own brand, and now you get to define who that brand to. Do you want to be somebody like Nike? Do you want to be somebody like Walmart? Somebody, these all are people who started these brands, and they because of their personal values and how they have lived, they define these companies, how they will be built. So you get to do this now, not
Yeah.
later.
And the thing is, the trickiest part with them growing up now as opposed to us, when, I mean, you were in a different country, when you were your son's age, when, you were in college and whatnot. But what's different now is social media. So if kids are on social media, we had a limited ability to have a brand when we were younger because the internet wasn't as prolific, it wasn't as ubiquitous, it wasn't everywhere. Now there's not even just the internet and what you can put up there, but there's social media apps, and you can put yourself on all these different apps. So there's so much pressure to, yes, remain unique, but be aware of what you're putting out, because kids today, as young as your son, are on these social apps. And you've seen stories of, okay, so and so just got hired to be the editor of this magazine or the president of this company. Oh wait, hold on a sec, we found something from 10 years ago on their social media. So now it's even more important to say your uniqueness is important, your weirdness, quote, weirdness is important. Be unique, don't follow the herd, but be careful, because you have all these tools at your disposal that people can see you with now, and they can find you later. Later in life, they can look back and see what you've done. So there's such a pressure to find a good balance of being yourself, but being responsible with those tools that are out there.
I agree with that. And again, do I want to be, the question you just need to ask for that is, I guess, is it okay if somebody finds out about it 20 years from now? Will it affect, and that's the only thing. But you're right, I see a lot of youngsters, right, on LinkedIn. And it's such a powerful thing to see them using and engaging on their platform. So when they are coming out, they never have to look for a job. People are already lining up to hire them. And that is the power of creating your own brand, talking to people, showing up in a certain way, and engaging and being very much of this, mindset that, what, I don't want to be that person who is sending resume to 50 people. I want 50 people to line up at my door. So I'm going to create that kind of a brand starting now. So it really is, I think, even though social media has this like a bad side, it's such a great way
Of
to also
course.
connect, and you can really be where you want to be anytime, anywhere, and you can build a career the way you want just by that.
Yeah. So it's just all a matter of recognizing the tools and being cognizant of that. It's unfortunate because I think when we were younger, we didn't have those tools. You could be more of a kid. You could be, a little wild, whatever it was. You could be yourself. Now you do have to be more cognizant, but like you said, you can turn it into a tool for yourself. So I love the fact that you brought up your son because that's such an important point in his youth, because my sons are still so young. One is 6 and the other one is 2. So I was curious what the lessons were that you had for your son, but your son, I mean, just recognizing, I think we both have the same lesson for these students. I said, don't lose yourself, know who you are. You complimented it with the weird factor from your son, which in all honesty, I think is amazing because it doesn't follow the script. And I think following the script is what keeps companies where they are. It keeps people where they are. It keeps people paralyzed. You don't have the innovation. You don't have the thought leadership of going down a different route, seeing a different perspective. So it's just so valuable that he has that. And I hope he doesn't lose it, because he still has high school, and high school is such it's such a different world. What grade is he in, Prati?
He is in eighth grade, but you know what? He's going to high school every day now for his math classes. So it would be interesting to see what
Okay.
happens. So he
Okay.
goes first to high school, take the math classes, then he goes to the middle school right now.
Okay. Okay.
So we'll see how
Yeah.
that goes.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that you would want to share just based on this conversation? I know you felt like you weren't too aware of how school might be in the US, compared to me having grown up here, but I think there's just so much value to what you've brought to it anyway. Is there any other advice that you would provide to somebody going back to school?
I think my thing is experiment, learn about it. Social media again is a great, it's digital. You can also delete things, right? If you don't. So find yourself, really start to go into and start asking, where do I want to go from here? Where do I want, do I want to travel around the world? Okay, if that's the kind of life I want, what would it take to create that life instead of just settling in to the narrative of society for you? I think that's what I would say. Really tap into yourself and ask. I wish I had that right when I was young. That somebody has really sat down and said, "Okay, what is it you truly want?" No,
Yes. Yes.
nobody really asked that question, and I never thought to ask that question to myself.
Yeah.
So, so I think that's even if you what you want now changes, 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, I think it's good to know where you want to go even in next 2 years, and how do I create that, how do I build that,
Yes.
start building it now. I think that would be my only advice to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point in that, you don't have to have the answer now, but you have to have the thought process, the
Yeah.
curiosity that as you go, as you keep evolving, be curious for yourself. You have to do it for yourself. It's not for anybody else. It's not for anybody's attention, even the attention you may get from recruiters or people that are hiring or jobs. That should be a byproduct. The work you do on yourself for yourself should be for you first. And then whatever other people see is a byproduct.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. What would you tell? Because we still have so many immigrants, right, going to school here. I don't personally have that experience of, I came here after I was done with college. I was already working. But you being coming from, the second generation here, where your parents are immigrant, what would you give those, advice to those kids who have really, they are the first generation in America, and they do have this kind of balance of my home is different and the college life is different, and they kind of not clash, but
Oh
they're
yeah.
just like hard to relate to.
Yeah. No, I know it just because even though I'm not the immigrant that came here and I'm going to school, I can understand it because my parents were immigrants. So I never, Spanish was their first language. Thinking back, I didn't have help with homework. I didn't have that kind of guidance. I didn't have that person who had already gone through the experience. That's why I can appreciate my relationship to my son, where I've already gone through it. I've already seen it here in this country. I can communicate with him a little better about what he's going to see, what he's going to study. But in terms of the immigrant the immigrant life here, coming here, right? I mean, there's so many refugees that will assimilate to society. It's tricky. I'm not even going to lie. I don't even know what the answer is. What's great is that there is a good community of people that work to assimilate those students into the experience. And listen, it sounds cliche, but this is a country built from immigrants. Immigrants, that's my story from my family. That's you personally. When you come to this country, you see it in a certain way. So there's something that you're working towards. I think maybe you don't take, and this is not to knock anybody that doesn't come from that story, but you see it a different way. You know its true value. You know where you come from versus where this is and what you can build here. So I don't know. I don't have a clean answer for you. But the people are lucky that they have a welcoming community that help them assimilate and get used to the traditions, the processes, the procedures. It's something that I can't even imagine going through.
That's
But
good. Yeah. So find your community, basically, you're saying, and work with, really ask for help. That's what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, there are going to be people out there that are strictly focused on assimilating people into the system. Take advantage of that. Pour everything you are. Remember what it is you want. The opportunities are there for everybody. Um, it all depends where you are, what part of the country you're in. I completely understand that, but um, yeah, we've seen it before. Hopefully, it's still that same way. Where if an immigrant comes here, they can they can get as much as they want to put in. So if you want something, a certain particular thing, show yourself, show others in the community how much you want to learn about what's around you, and just work your tail off. I mean, it's still possible, but just work your tail off, understand where you're coming from, where you're coming into, and then just make sure that you put everything you are into it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. That makes sense.
Yeah, you caught me off guard with that question, but in all honesty, I mean that's the best I have, Prati.
That's great. I think, yeah, this is it. I mean, you learn by doing. So this is amazing. Yeah. So anything else to add? If not, we can, wrap up this
Yeah, yeah,
episode.
yeah. No, I think that's good. I think we both gave great advice and examples. Thank you for sharing about your son. And thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe where you're watching, subscribe where you're listening, and reach out and let us know what you thought of the conversation. We're open to covering different topics. We're open to having people talk to us about topics we've already covered or new topics. So yeah, we want to keep building this community and keep a lookout for the episodes to come. And if you have any questions, please reach out. You'll have all our contact information across social. So take care.
Bye.